2/2, Midiendo la Explotación en la Economía Global.
Care about this. I think the idea reflects on some level that people maybe aren't getting everything or being fully compensated or rewarded for what they contribute to the economy or to society. And some people are effectively generating wealth for others. And in some sense, this can be viewed as an injustice and a kind of fundamental injustice of capitalism. And this is, I think people should care about this. It may not be possible to eliminate exploitation entirely. For instance, one of the things we've studied is that if you try to if you use exploitation intensity or exploitation as a measure of inequality, if you were to have some kind of redistributive policies to eliminate exploitation, if people have different skills and abilities, are able to contribute different amounts of labor to the economy, then if you have equal wealth or equal income, you still have other inequalities because some people might be contributing more than others. So this does highlight important policy issues of, maybe some of the aims might be to reduce exploitation through, trying to diminish the differentials in skills or privilege or position that people might have, creating more kind of general equality among people in a very kind of holistic sense of the term. So I think in terms of specific policy debates, a lot of our work on exploitation can be seen as, highlighting some things that might be lost in debates about or arguments along the lines of we should have more equal wealth, we should have, or more equal distribution of wealth, we should have a more equal distribution of income. So thinking about inequality in terms of exploitation highlights how if you have what could be considered this kind of simple egalitarianism, you can actually create inequalities of other kinds. So if wealth were equally distributed, people with different skills, some people who are very skilled might be contributing more to the economy than they're getting out, and vice versa. And this, still might be unpalatable to some people. So I think our work on exploitation intensity shows that, it's not just about necessarily like compressing income and wealth distributions, although that may be helpful or might be something we want to aim for. One aim might be trying to diminish the inequality and exploitation, the differential of how much people contribute to society versus how much they get out of it. And in terms of international relations or imperialistic international relations and the unequal exchange between countries, diminishing exploitative relations between countries would mean having better ways to ensure that there's not just, better distribution of global wealth, but also that there aren't, uneven distributions of technologies across countries, allowing or kind of facilitating or fostering further uneven development. It would mean making sure that at a global level there are more opportunities for people to, be educated, to, contribute more to the economy, to have the same opportunities or similar opportunities across countries that others might. Right now, what we're probably seeing in terms of AI, whether it's worse exacerbating inequality or kind of improving inequality, meaning diminishing inequality, I think right now we might be in the risk of it worsening inequality, to be honest, because with a powerful tool like AI, I think we're seeing certain people who hold lots of wealth and power attempting to gain control over AI or to corner a market in this, or we might see more of that. In terms of AI's ability to diminish inequality, it could be there. I think it's going to depend on who's able to have control or exert control over AI. Is this something that's going to become, available to society at large? Is it going to be something like a public good because of all the positive externalities it can generate? Or is this something that's going to become part of, capital, is going to be controlled and used? So I think the risk is there of still going in either direction. I think we have to kind of decide which way we want to go with this collectively. This current paper that I'm discussing, the Dynamics of International Exploitation, it's recently been published in Environment and Planning A, Economy and Space. This is a paper that's in a kind of a series of papers that I've been working on with my frequent co-authors, Roberto Veneziani and Naoki Yoshihara, where over a series of papers and a number of years at this point, we have been developing a computational approach to studying exploitation and classes in a very kind of broad and general sense. We first started developing this class of models to study, how exploitation status or exploitation intensity, as we, develop the concept, how it can be used as a measure of inequality and how it evolves in when we consider things like technological change, population growth, what kinds of different exploitation might people experience in these scenarios in growing economies. We've developed this over a number of papers, and in addition to developing that concept just as a measure of, or novel measure of exploitation, we then implemented it as, or developed it as a measure of inequality, where exploitation intensity, can be used to capture or measure different types of inequalities that we see in capitalism, rather than a narrower focus on things like income and wealth inequality. So our measure of exploitation intensity, when treated as a measurement of inequality, captures contributions to the economy in addition to what people get out of the economy. So it's kind of an interesting measure of inequality and highlights certain things that other approaches cannot. And studying this using a computational simulation framework, we can see how this different treatment of inequality compares to standard treatments of income and wealth inequality, how it behaves or what happens as we have things like technological change, population growth, changes in bargaining power that different workers might have against capitalists or vice versa. And so we've developed this over a few papers where we first looked at measuring or developing a framework to look at exploitation intensity, geared kind of tuned to the U.S. distribution of income and wealth. And we're able to show some interesting things about how this compares to conventional income and wealth inequality in the U.S. One thing that I think is particularly interesting about the measure of exploitation intensity is that it shows that there can be some very strong incentives or reasons to have some kinds of redistributive policy in order to diminish the exploitation and unequal relations that people have between each other. And we then, kept working on this idea and, found that it actually has wide applications. So not only can exploitation intensity be used to look at inequality within a country, either between individuals, between households, or other groups, it can also apply at the global level to look at inequalities between countries. And it can be used to measure, or as a measurement of unequal exchange. And this kind of circles back on and revives this classic literature in the Marxian tradition, looking at uneven development and unequal exchange between countries, where in these kind of classic treatments of unequal exchange, the unequal relations between countries exist because you have differences in or deviations between prices and what are called labor values, or some measure of the labor content of commodities. One of the things that's nice about our measure of exploitation intensity as a measure of unequal exchange is it doesn't rely on these kinds of market distortions or any kind of non-competitive distortions. It's a very kind of simple, easy to implement measure, and it maps very well onto the kind of classic understanding of this core periphery structure of the global economy.
Este sitio puede ayudarte a mejorar tu comprensión de lectura y escucha en inglés. Use inteligencia artificial para dividir las oraciones en partes fáciles de entender. Con el reproductor puedes ajustar la velocidad, pausar o retroceder para entender cada frase. Ofrece traducción a 20 idiomas, lo que facilita mucho el aprendizaje. Solo escribe inglés.com en tu navegador y pruébalo ya.